Okay, I think we are. Are we live? Yes, we are. Okay, fantastic. All right. Oh, and I need to get this. Pick up these papers. One side, we're going to get the papers off the printer right there, and we start. You should picture Shona to the airport yesterday.
If you heard what Simeon just said, he said there's a big headline in today's Sun Sentinel saying that as many people who migrated to Florida last year, as many people left probably because of the rise in insurance prices.
I got there at 9:30. I got there late. No problem. No, it was a problem. Getting home was terrible. But she sat in the airport for 3.5 hours. Yeah, in fact, we took off.
All right. Okay. All right. So good morning, everybody. We are continuing towards the end of Reish Ayin Aleph. And we were in the middle of Sifkat on Ayin Ches last time we left off at the Mishnah Berurah. But just to remind you, we'll start from the beginning of that, of Sifkat on Ayin Ches. The situation here, we were finishing up Tez Vav, is that if a person had a cup of wine that they were holding for Kiddush, and then it spilled, so totally fell out of your hand, and all the contents of the cup fell out, then the halacha is that you have to bring another kos and make a Borei Pri Hagafen, but you don't have to go back and make a new Kiddush. The Kiddush bracha counted because I held a kos shel Kiddush during the time that a kos shel yayin during the time I was making Kiddush. So it was Kiddush ala kos. Happens that then I dropped it, I fell out of my hand, it spilled. So I'm holding in abeyance the Borei Pri Hagafen bracha. Well, that's gone now because that wine I was holding in my hand, that was what I made the Borei Pri Hagafen off of, and now I have to go find some other wine, and so because of that, I have to make a new Borei Pri Hagafen. Now there are some caveats to this. So we'll review a little bit, and then we'll finish this whole comment of the Mishnah Berurah. We're going to start with Sifkat on Ayin Ches. Okay, you can use this chair. You can pull it over here. Okay, ve'enot tzarich lachzo. You don't have to go back. Okay, and make a new Kiddush. The Kaven shekidesh. Everyone see the spot, by the way? Ayin Ches. Sifkat on Ayin Ches in the Mishnah Berurah. On my edition, it's page 98 at the top right-hand corner. You can follow right over here. Okay? Or you can take one of those. So you take the sheet. Right there. Okay? I'll show you. Follow along. Right over here. Okay? Okay. The Kaven shekidesh mitchila al hayayin kadin ve'gam ta'am kashir afal pishelo tame osa kos shekidesh yotza. Since you made a kiddush, at the beginning of this whole situation over wine, like halacha requires, and then afterwards I got a different cup of wine and I tasted the wine in the proper amount. Even though I didn't taste from that particular cup upon which I made Kiddush, I'm still Yotzei. I still fulfill my mitzvah of Kiddush. We're just at the beginning of Ayin Ches, Richie. Sifkat Ayin Ches in the Mishnah Berurah. Okay?
How does that happen?
Because I spilled the cup in the middle after I made Kiddush. I finished the Kiddush, and then it slipped out of my hand, and the whole cup went crashing down. So the Kiddush counts, Simeon. I have to make a new Borei Pri Hagafen though, because the wine that I was intending upon drinking, that I had in mind when I made the Borei Pri Hagafen, is now all over the floor, and I have to go back to the wine cellar to get more wine, right? Okay. So then I have to make a new Borei Pri Hagafen. So, but in terms of Kiddush, I'm good to go. I'm Yotzei. Like I made Kiddush over a cup of wine. I dropped it afterwards, which is a problem, but that's a separate problem. Now, v'davka shelo hisiach dato bein time. So, aval in kvar yatsa mimkom ben time kol shutam mikos acher tzarich lachzor ulekadesh. Here's the caveat. When does it work that the Kiddush counts, that I'm Yotzei the Kiddush? That's as long as I don't have a Hesech Hadas in the meantime, because I have to go over to the other room pick up a new wine bottle now because the whole wine, my glass of wine completely fell. And as long as I don't have a hesach hadas in that time, I just I don't talk. I go over, I get the other bottle of wine, I pour the bottle of wine into my cup, and then I make a bar pegafen and drink. Then I'm yotze kiddush. But if I already was left my spot, yotzam imkoma bein time kodem shetam mikos acher, I go on a 5-minute journey. Like they used to have in the times of the Gemara. They would have the wine, the wine cellar, and you go down. You have to dilute the wine. It's a whole to do, right? Then tzarich lachlor l'kadesh. Then you have to go back and do the whole thing because the borei pri hagafen needs to be connected. The chiddush of this whole sif is that it doesn't have to be connected with the same wine. Meaning, as long as I make kiddush over wine, and then I drink some wine connected to the kiddush.
Yeah, but you said, well, can I get them on the next wine?
Yes, but at least it is connected. Eric, I have a job for you. Can you go to the next room over and pull a chair into this room? Thank you.
Just keep my spot.
I'll keep your spot. I'm gonna get on the chair. Thank you.
But if
Okay.
your conversation has to do with, everybody wait just a second, I have to get more wine. I mean, that's not a hesach hadat.
No, but if it turns into a whole process where I have to go and get and dilute, and it's not so simple. Then you're talking about you're right. Technically, you can make it without a hesach hadas, but if it becomes a long enough distraction, it's hard to say that you're really still thinking about the bracha and it's still holding there. You're going to see that. Well, we're going to keep reading here in a moment, and you'll see some more practical examples. Yeah, and we'll see some more examples of this. So hold on 1 second. We'll fill in some of the details about what kind of a hesach hadas maybe, or what's the limits on that when we get towards the bottom of this, actually. So. Now he talks about another scenario where if I make kiddush, I think we mentioned this last time. We make kiddush and something goes awry. That also you may or may not be yotze depending on the circumstances. So take a look here. Kos tva poskim in kiddush al hakos the savar shu yain. You pour a cup of wine and you think it's wine, but it turns out v'nimtza shu chometz. Oh, it turns out it's gone bad. It's vinegar now. Oh mayim, or you got confused, you picked up a cup, you thought it was wine in it or grape juice, and it turned out it was actually just water. So, yikach kos acher. Now, that is, by the way, I was talking about last time, I was like, this is the most ridiculous case. How do you not know if you're picking up wine? Unless you have, what was that? So, you could have a situation of white wine, or they used to dilute their wine. So, they had water probably accessible there in some sort of, cup or whatever, and you pick up the wrong one, and you weren't paying attention. So, it's not completely outlandish. Anyway, so yikach kos acher shel yayin v'varach borei pri hagafen v'yikadesh shenis. So then you're really in trouble, because then you made the kiddush. You didn't make kiddush over wine. The kiddush bracha was made over either vinegar or water, even worse. So then you have to make a new borei pri hagafen and a new v'yikadesh shenis, and make a second kiddush. The kiddush you were not yotze at all. The kaven shelo haya yayin, since it wasn't wine. Nimsa shelo kiddush al hakos klal. It turns out you didn't make kiddush over a cup of wine at all. Umikol makom. Im hayadato mitchila mishas bracha lishtos yayinos. This is why, Hinda, I wanted to hold off a little bit on answering your question. We have an extra little bit of halacha here. This can relate to the first case too. So let's work in the case of in the world of the second case, the vinegar or the water. If at the table right here, right in front of me, is a bottle of wine that I intend upon consuming at this meal that we're having on Shabbos, and I pick up the cup, turns out it was vinegar. The bottle of wine, though, that's a new bottle of wine. It's not vinegar. And I pick up the cup. Obviously, I probably end up tasting it because that's how I realize it's vinegar. I take a sip. Ugh, yuck! It's not wine at all anymore. So I might need to make a new kiddush, right? I was going to drink more wine. I had in mind before I started this kiddush, I was going to drink more wine at this meal. I don't need to make a second borei pri hagafen because the wine is right there. The borei pri hagafen that I intended was for all wines that I plan on consuming. Okay, rak likadesh, right? What do I have to do though? I have to make a second kiddush because the kiddush when I was holding the cup that I was holding would turn out to be vinegar, so the kiddush never got off. This right where the brackets start. Okay, you see
We're
this?
talking about wine now or vinegar? So you didn't know that it's wine.
I didn't.
Wine is
I
becoming.
thought it was wine, but it became vinegar, right? It turned.
You had more.
Right, but there was a nice, beautiful bottle right next to me, which I planned on drinking myself, distributing to my guests as well, and I was going to consume that, and since I had that right in front of me, I don't need to make a bar pregafen because that wine was covered in my bar pregafen. So I quickly pour from that bottle of wine, I drink, and I'm good for the bar pregafen. But here's the problem: the kiddush when I was holding the cup, that cup was not wine. So that kiddush doesn't count. Okay? So he says, shenimtza kos mayim. And he says, this applies when he actually thinks maybe the vinegar one you can get away with. Let's see. I'm not sure the vinegar one really counts. I wouldn't call it a chamar medina. We'll see in a moment. And he says, the cholzeh, shenimtza kos mayim, is when you find that there's water in your cup, or things like that. I think that vinegar is going to fall in that category. People don't just drink red wine vinegar, willy nilly. I don't think that's a chamar medina, a common beverage in our country. Something that's not considered a mashke. A drink. People actually drink. People don't drink vinegar. But if it turns out in the cup, you thought it was wine, but somebody poured you beer. I didn't even pour the cup. Somebody else poured my cup. They said, here, we'll give him some beer. It's fine. He likes beer. So it turns out I make Kiddush. First of all, I make the wrong bracha because I made Bora Priya Gofen. So that's a problem in of itself. But
it includes it. So
well, if I drink wine, then the beer can come along for the ride. But I didn't make the right bracha to start with, right? So, sorry about that to all my friends.
That's if it's the mayim. That is
For sure, yeah. If it's water or something that's not a beverage of the state, something that people commonly are drinking in our country. So then, if I do find one of those kinds of beverages, alcohol, alcoholic beverage, beer, right? I don't need to take another cup for kiddush. I found out afterwards. Okay, so now I fix the bracha rishona. I make a shahakol afterwards because I came to realize it was not indeed wine. So I make a shahakol and then I can drink, and the kiddush I am yotze. Now this is a very interesting halacha because it's not so pashut that you can make kiddush on Friday nights on anything but wine, or as a backup the bread. But to make it on chamar medina on shechar, there are some poskim who say you're not yotze at all. At all. Rabbeinu Tam is at the top of that list. And so therefore you have to be very careful. I believe we're going to get to this actually in the very next siman about what to use and what not to use. And there's a whole, actually it's in Sif Dal, the next, or is it Sif Dal? No, it's, where is this one? It's in the next siman. What if Shar Mashi? So the Sif Katan test. The Malcolm Shein Matsu Yain, Shein Yain Matsu Yesh Omrim Shemekachin Al Shecha or Shar Mashkin. Some say make the kiddush on other drinks or beer, Chutz Min Hamayim, except for water. V'yesh Omrim Shein Mekachin. Some say even if you don't have any wine, I'm sorry, the door is closed for you. And according to the Rush, this is what it says right here, and the Shulchan Aruch will learn this in the next siman. So in a week or two, you'll see this yourself. That Balayla Lo Yikadesh Al HaShecha El HaPas. At night, don't you do kiddush over shechar? Make the kiddush over the bread. That is the preferred method than using shechar, than using beer. Uvaboker, if you have no wine in the morning, then it's better to use shechar, and you'll make a shahakol in place of the borei priya gofen, yeah. So that is the psak halacha at night. Some we much prefer pas, the bread, because some say not yosef at all. But in a pinch like this. So we rely on the opinion that says that shechar does count, but it's certainly not ideal. But that's why the psak halacha is what it is here, that you can make a shahakol after the fact if you realize what you have in your cup is shechar, it's a chamar medina or shechar. Yes, you have a question?
If we make, sometimes if we don't have grape juice, kiddush on challah, then do we use challah again?
No, that's a good question. No, once you make kiddush over the bread, that's it. Yeah, you can continue forward with your meal. That's why you would wash in that situation before kiddush. Good question here. Yes. Yeah.
If you didn't have another bottle of wine prepared by the table, you have to go down and get it somewhere else. Then you got to repeat all the brachot in everything.
Excellent. Go weiter. Exactly your case. Come here. Take a look at this. So that which we say you have to go back and make a second kiddush. That's when the wine is not prepared in front of you. This is to your question, Tommy. Right. So let's even go back to the first case where I spill the wine. Oh yeah, he was holding a cup of wine. I go to sit down to drink there, and it goes all over the place. But if there was a bottle of wine right over here, or the grape juice was right there in front of us, if it's munach lefanav bekli al hashulchan, it's literally in the bottle or a decanter on the table in front of you. Oh, al safsal, I wonder if they had like a bench where they kept the wine and the food or something like that off the table. Because remember, in those days of the Gemara, they did not have dining room tables. Okay, they had the little individual TV dinner trays. That's what they had. That's what the Gemara describes it, right? So let's say they had a safsal with where the food or the whatever that was right here in the room. If that's where the other bottle of wine was, the Eis HaKiddush at the time of the Kiddush, Vedato haya lishtos mimenu achar kach, and I had intention to continue drinking from this later on during the meal. Einot tzarach gam likadesh shenis. I don't need to make a second Kiddush. Right, so
that's in case you drop the wine.
Well, that's alachas kama v'kama. Here he's even saying in the second case. Let's say it turns out I had vinegar in my cup, and now the kiddush doesn't even count. He's saying this is a bit of a kiddush that even if it wasn't in my cup, but it was here on the table and I had in mind to drink it. That's why he's saying the kadesh shenis. I don't need to go back. Einot tzarich gam lekadesh shenis. Certainly, the Bori Pergafen bracha, the bottle is right here or right over there by the side table. For sure, it's like I made kiddush. When I say I made kiddush al hayayin, this is a bit of a kiddush. Okay, but this is halacha. It's like I made kiddush over all the wine that's in front of me, even though the one I was holding, or I thought I was holding in my hand was wine. Turns out it wasn't. But there was a fresh bottle right in front of my face. And when I made kiddush on all the wine that's at the table. Now, the funny part of this is where you could push back on this and say but Rabbi, then by that logic, I could have a drop in my cup, less than a revius in my cup, but I had more than a revius on the table, and that of course, yes, good. By the way, and even correct. By the way, we said the idea of a kos malayayin, these things. By revius, might even need it even b'diavad, but from the other things. They're lechatchila kos pagum. These are lechatchila halachos, so okay, this is it's maybe a bit of a halachic. What are you going to call a halachic stretch here?
Rav.
But v'yishte mehen techef milo lugmav, and then after you're done, okay, you realize the mistake was made. Immediately, you pour the correct amount of wine into your cup, and you should drink malo lugmav, which is the minimum shear that you're supposed to drink. That's a little bit of what we call rov revius, a little more than a revius. It's enough to fill one side of your cheek, one side of your mouth, if you push all the liquid to that side. Let me just finish this, and then I'll take some questions. V'yesh omrim od, and there are those who go further. Look how far they're going to go. This is I didn't answer your question, Tommy, because look what he says here. Dehu adin im ein yain lefanav, even if the wine is not in front of your face, and you can pull a trick here. Ready? But the challah is already at the table, and it's ready in front of you. You don't need to make a new kiddush. But rather, what should you do? Immediately after kiddush, you finish the kiddush bracha, go right to the bread, you'll make a hamotzi, and you're done. Because I told you, b'diavad, you can make kiddush on challah. Now, this only works under one circumstance. But if, like what most of us do, we make kiddush and then we wash our hands afterwards. Ein shayach lomar dechal kiddush alachat. You can't claim that I made kiddush over the bread, because I wasn't even ready. I had to go wash my hands, say the tilas yadayim. It's a whole to do. You can't claim that. That only works if you're the yekem minhag, right? Do you do that, by the way, David? David, do you come for yekem? No, you're not yekem, but not that one. Okay. So, anyways, that only works if you would wash before kiddush. Then, if it turns out you spill or whatever, or if you spill, even if it turns out you had water in the cup, you can rely on the hamotzi right afterwards as a b'diavad way to cover yourself.
How does that work?
What was that, Shlomo?
There's no geffen, there's one.
So the bar geffen is a goner, right? It's a bracha levatala, but there's not. But you didn't do it on purpose. You didn't know that there was. You thought there was actually wine. That's what happens to all of us. We make a mistake. So actually, what should you do in that circumstance? Anyone remember what we do? If you make a bracha levatala, so you should say Baruch Shem Kavod Machutoli Lam Va'ed afterwards, right? Oh, you knew that?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I should have called on you. Very good. You make Baruch Shem Kavod Machutoli Lam Va'ed. And you do the best you can to not make the mistake again, but we all make mistakes. So
how does the Yekes custom works? You wash your hands.
You would wash before you make kiddush.
Then after that you go to the
Right, exactly. You take a sip and immediately, because there's no.
Makes sense.
I'm not breaking.
It's actually logical. It's a logical. Yeah.
You have less time wasted.
Well, that's for sure. There's less time wasted for the egg. You washed kiddush, hamotzi, gefilte fish, chicken. We're shir hamalos. Right, it's over. Right, that's right. Right, exactly. No, you're in bed by a certain time. It's done. Yeah. Simeon, I saw your hand up before, right? You had a question.
Yes, Rob. If somebody makes kiddush and in one of the alternatives satisfy the requisite consumption to support the bracha, and there are other bottles of wine munach lifneihem, I'm talking now about the orchim, are they obligated to make a guffin if they drink from these bottles that are still full or new, or do they benefit from the guffin that was said with kiddush and they can just drink it?
So, meaning that the Mekadesh had vinegar in his cup, it turns out, right?
Let's for openers just assume he satisfied the requisite requirement for the guffin. Whether he placed it or whatever, he did what he had to do, and he's good to go.
Right.
Now there are other bottles that are on the table at the time of the kiddush.
Yeah.
Are the other people around the table, or even he for that matter, permitted to drink that wine without a successive bracha?
Oh, for sure the Mekadesh, yes, for sure. If the others did not drink at Kiddush, they just said Amen because it was his bracha, but they never drank any wine, then yes, they should make a Borei Pri Hagafen, because for them, they never really made a bracha Rishona yet. But if they had tasted even a drop of wine at the moment of Kiddush, meaning they were Yotze with the Mekadesh's Borei Pri Hagafen, then they don't need to make any subsequent Borei Pri Hagafen brachot.
So the Kiddush bracha for the other guests sitting at the table is insufficient to cover them for the wine that they may drink.
Right, because they didn't consume anything after the Borei Pri Hagafen was made. Meaning, because that bracha wasn't, it turns out, relevant to them vis-a-vis their own personal drinking. And therefore, if let's say it comes to the main course, suddenly one of them says, actually, I want to drink some wine. Even though maybe they had in mind, by the way, I'm going to drink wine later at the main course. I want to drink it with my chicken.
Right.
It's too much of a gap to say that you talked, you went to go wash your hands, you had hamotzi in the middle, you were talking about the stresses of the week, whatever it was, and then finally get to it. You have to make a bracha rishona because you never made the Borei Pri Hagafen over a bracha rishona to start out.
I understood the halacha at one point when we learned this idea that the wine that you drink that's on the table
Yeah.
is not only covered by kiddush, but if he brings a new bottle of wine to the table and it is equal to or lesser than qualitatively what he had been drinking before,
Yeah.
not required a successive bracha.
I believe that's correct. Yes. But that's because I drank at the initial Borei Pri Hagafen, right? That's all. Meaning that the bracha rishona got off the ground. That's what has to happen. As long as the bracha rishona gets off the ground at the beginning, then I could drink whatever, all the wines that, as you described, subsequent to that. Okay.
Thank
So
you.
now let's go to a Sif Tez Zayin back upstairs on the end of the
Can I
first
ask
line.
can I ask
Yeah,
a
I do.
really weird question? And don't laugh, because this has happened.
Okay, let's hear it.
You make kiddush,
Mm-hmm.
you say, and you drop the wine, and it soaks through the cloth of the challah and soaks into the challah. What do you do? What bracha do you make? And when do you make it?
On the
Do you then
challah, you say?
wash? Do you then wash and make hamotzi, borei pri hagafen? What do you make?
I would look at it as now it's like food that's mixed, and it's like ikar and tafel here, and to me this is it's bread, even though now it's flavored bread and soggy bread, but it's still nonetheless bread, and I don't think you could. It's a clever idea. Could I be yotze the borei pri hagafen on the challah that was soaked in? Look, if you had washed before the kiddush, then noch better. You'll make hamotzi and you'll consume the wine at the same time that's soaked into the challah. But I think you're still anyways relying on the challah piece to help you out with that from terms of the halacha. No, I think that wouldn't help you. That's a good question though. It's a thoughtful idea. Let's go to Tez Zayin. Lo yitamu hamisukim kodem sheyitam mekadesh. Halacha is that you're sitting around the table. One person makes kiddush. The misubin, those who are reclining with the balabayis who's making kiddush, should not taste before the mekadesh tastes from his wine. He made borei pri hagafen. They shouldn't taste from him. Im heim zekukim lekoso. If they are zokuk, they are like dependent upon his coast. Now, how are they dependent upon his coast? We'll talk about it in a second. So, here's an example. Let's say they have empty glasses. So I take from my kiddush cup, I pour into an empty little thing, and I hand it to Richie. So now Richie has holding on to some wine. Richie should not drink that little shot glass of wine that I gave him because it's nice. It's a mitzvah and a mufchar for everyone around the table to taste. He should not drink it before I take my first sip. He should not take that first sip if I haven't taken my first sip, right? A case of pegumim, right? It's a case of kos pogum where Richie had wine in his cup, but he had already drunk from it before. It was consumed from before, maybe before Shabbos, even whatever. And now he's got that cup of wine in front of him. So I make kiddush and I'll pour a little bit of wine into his cup, and that heals the pogum situation. And now Richie's like, okay, I want to drink. But he shouldn't drink until I drink. Now, this becomes a problem when what? I fixed Richie's cup, but now I got to fix Steve's cup and David's cup and Shlomo's. But Richie's already like, he wants to drink already. No, let's go. But if I drink from my cup is now a kos pogum. And if I pour into your cup, that doesn't do you any good, right? You should drink from a non-kos pogum. So therefore, he has to be patient and wait until I've taken my first sip as the mekadesh. Then you can go forward, and everybody can consume the wine from which I poured you. Yes, Shlomo.
Because if you make a kiddush and then you pour to other people, now it takes time for you to drink. But you already made borei pri hagafen and you're not drinking the wine. How is that working? Isn't that you're supposed to consume the
Right away?
Right away. So, but if you start pouring to everyone and walking, on the table.
Yes. So Kiddush and also Hamotzi on Shabbos are the hardest times of the year of the week, where in terms of bracha rishona. Thank you so much for coming. Big high five. All right. All right, go Mizrahi Mayhem, right? That's their team name, the Mizrahi Mayhem. Yeah, we played them live, Columbus Torah Academy Lions. So, all right, very good. Thanks for coming.
It says Mesubin.
Yeah.
Is it implying that we're talking about Pesach?
No, so the term Mesubin, I love this question. Mesubin means I'm reclining together.
Oh, we say.
That's why Bein Yoshvinu Bein Mesubin in the question in the Haggadah is whether when I recline with people. It means that it's a way of being kovea, that we are together as part of a seuda, right? That we are reclining together. Yeah, Richie.
So, in Roman times,
They would lie next to each other.
well, in formal they would have these lounges.
Correct.
So, but they would organize the lounges in a circle, and each lounge had its own table.
Correct.
So, the Mesubin, the word Mesubin comes from the circle of the lounges. They would sit in the circular.
Right.
That's why they would know that they're eating.
They're a group together,
and not So,
and that's why the question means, right? Ben Yoshim is like on another night you can eat this way, like in this, or you could just sit.
Yeah.
So it didn't have to say Mesubin.
Yeah.
So Mesubin means, but the Mesubin applies here that I am a part of a group, and therefore when Shlomo makes Kiddush, I'm being Yotzei with his Kiddush. We are all together.
Yeah.
So if I'm Yoshev, am I not Yotzei?
So
no, in the days of the Gemara, you could be.
The term Mesubin just came to mean people eating a meal together.
Right, correct.
As a group.
Exactly. Therefore,
reclining.
Correct. Whether or not the term was used, that became the reference point for we're eating together. And Yoshvin means not that, right?
Yeah.
All right. Take care. Bye, guys. Okay, so that's why. So Shlomo was asking before that how we have the break. Yes, you have to be. This one of those times when you have to sit quietly. It's actually the time where you really have to be quiet between the time that the bracha, bar peragafa, and the kiddush is finished, and you consuming it. If you're going to consume from it, then you have to be quiet the whole time. You don't have to consume the kiddush wine as long as the mekadesh drinks from it and drinks a proper amount. You don't have to drink from it. It's a mitzvah min hamufchar to drink from the kiddush wine. So you don't have to, but if you're going to, you have to sit quietly and wait for the cup to come to you, because that bracha is kind of sitting there. Same goes with the hamotzi, by the way. The mevarech will cut a piece for themselves and eat, and they're slicing up the challah for the 25 guests around the table. People are going to have to wait patiently. It's not ideal, but there's no better solution there. Otherwise, you're supposed to have the food. The halacha is that any other situation, you're supposed to have the food in your dominant hand, ready to be consumed. Like if you're having a sandwich, right? You're holding the sandwich, and then you're making hamotzi, boom, and it goes right in your mouth. But you have no possibility with that because you have to make the bracha over 2 whole loaves, or in this case, you have to make the bracha over a cup of wine, and your cup of wine is from which everyone else will consume a little bit. So you have no better option. It's hard. Okay, let's go back over here. So let's finish it upstairs, then we'll go downstairs to the Mishnah Berurah. Aval im hayu lahem kosos yayin she'enam pegumim. Let's say that my guests around the table don't have a kos pagum. They poured from the bottle of wine just like I poured from the bottle of wine, and they have a perfectly good, unconsumed, bottle of a cup of wine in front of them. Rashaim lishtos kodem sheyishta hamikadesh. So they are permitted to drink then in that circumstance before the Mekadesh drinks, because they were not zakuk, they were not dependent upon his cup. Therefore, they can go ahead and consume. So I'll go back to my sandwich example. Sunday afternoon, you're consuming a sandwich for lunch, right? This happens, by the way, in school. This is the same lunch is served to every kid, right? They're having grilled cheese today, right? So if the kids wanted to, right, one kid they could all wash. Comes to the back to the table. One kid can make a hamotzi on his grilled cheese, and everyone else can eat their grilled cheese. And before the first guy takes a bite of his grilled cheese, everyone else can bite their grilled cheese. Not a problem at all. But I'm dependent upon the thing that you made the bracha, and I was dependent on the bracha on the wine the wine in your cup. You have to pour it into my cup. Then you have to, the mekadesh or the mevarech has to consume first. Yeah, Tommy.
Better method, because you will fulfill the bracha right away. Otherwise, you have to wait and there's an absent. Here,
Right,
there's
so
no-
To do what? Wait,
If
who should
everybody
wait?
You have
has
your
their
own
own cup.
wine,
Yeah.
Everybody
you
has their
drink
own
right
cup.
away.
And then get a little taste from
You don't
the.
need to get a taste because you already did that.
Right, that's true. You don't fulfill the mitzvah min hamuvchar of having from the coasts upon which the bracha was made. Though it's what I thought you were about to say was that you can have your own cup of wine, you consume your own cup of wine, and then the little extra wine will make its way down the table, and I'll have that as well. And that way I made mitzvah min hamuvchar, but I didn't wait in between the bracha so long. It's a clever idea though to minimize the time between the bracha rishona and the consumption of the wine.
What's the
That's
difference
definitely
between-
possible.
Between this option and the other, that he said, if they and not cooking line, there's two things. What's the difference between?
So shofech, the case of shofech mimeno lekosos shviyada rekonim.
Yeah.
So that just means that this is like what many people do. By the way, they have those little cups. The person makes kiddush, and then they start pouring into all the little cups.
Right.
That's the kos rekon means empty. Means that you had an empty cup in front of you. I came over to you and I poured into your cup. You were completely dependent on me, by the way. You didn't have any wine that time. So therefore, after I poured it into your cup,
You can drink from it before I drink.
no, you can't. You can't drink unless I drink first,
Okay,
because
so-
you were dependent on my
So what-
on my cup.
and the
On
other-
your bracha, on your recitation of the bracha.
What was that, Shlomo?
Okay, there's two things.
Oh yeah, then there was pogum, right? Pogumim.
Right. If it's not
So-
pagum, you can drink. But
If it's
pagum, you
correct. If it's not a kos pogum, let's say Shlomo, I made kiddush and there was a not a kos pogum, a full cup of wine in front of you, and I made bar pegafa and mekadesh Shabbos. And before I get to putting wine in my mouth, you jump on the opportunity first, and you take your cup and you drink. That is perfectly fine. That is perfectly fine. You should try to ideally get some of the wine from my cup, because that's mitzvah min hamuvchar to have a little bit. But even if you don't, you're still yotzei, and that's fine. What you described is perfectly fine now.
So
Yeah, Richie.
Let's say everybody at the table has their own cup. It's a full cup of wine.
Yeah.
All the wine's been poured before Kiddush. The Makadesh makes Kiddush, but he has in mind that to make everybody yotzei with his Kiddush, and everybody has in mind when they hear his bracha to be yotzei, it's as if they made their own Kiddush, isn't it? If they're Shomei Ka'ona, if they're listening to your bracha,
Yeah.
and they say amen to your bracha, and they drink the wine, it's like they made the bracha themselves.
Correct. That's why, as long as they don't have a kos pogum or they're not dependent upon my cup, that's why.
But the mitzvah min hamuvchar is to drink from the Kiddush wine, but now your cup is like Kiddush wine.
But I hear the.
If the kavanah from the Makadesh and all the people listening was that everybody's listening to your Kiddush as if it's their own Kiddush, they say amen, the Shomei Ka'ona, then now it's like they made Kiddush.
That's interesting. What do you think about that?
So
Is that
mitzvah min hamuvchar?
is that cup now like we treat that like a kosher kiddush?
Hmm.
That is a fascinating question. I do not know offhand if that is if that. My gut tells me for some reason I feel like the answer is no, but your logic would add up that there should be something to what you're saying.
If you pour it if
Yeah,
you make
Shlomo.
kiddush and you pour it in small cups and you hand it to them, they cannot drink before you drink.
Yes, that's for sure. That is for sure. Yes. Huh.
Because they depend on your cup.
Yeah.
Because they depend on their own cup.
Had drank from that cup and then distributed, then it's not.
Doesn't do any
Yeah,
good. Doesn't do any good. It's the kos pogum.
Yeah,
So you didn't really help them.
but that was the practice in the olden days.
Right. Meaning it may still be
Of course, pagum because you drank it, but you're the one who made
right.
kiddush.
So I'm saying if in terms of making their kos less pogum, maybe Bidafka Richie is right. I'm just thinking why. Let's talk about the logic for a second. Because why does it matter that your kos, as the guests around the table, why does it matter that your kos is kos pogum? You're not making the bracha on it. A kos pogum is only a relevant halacha when I'm using it as a kos shel mitzvah, right? Like after benching, like kiddush, I need to make sure it's not a kos pogum. So what Richie is suggesting, and I think really very sharply, is that everybody else's cups around the table, perhaps vis-a-vis the principle of Shomei Ka'ona, is essentially functioning as a cup of kiddush. And therefore there is no really this mitzvah and a mufchar in this situation, unless in the first case you have a kos vekon, you have nothing. Right. So you are dependent upon my cup. You don't have to drink, by the way. If you had no wine, it'd be fine. You yotzei the mitzvah of kiddush. But if you also have a cup of wine, you could. It sounds like you're extending the principle of ideally your cup is a kos shel kiddush, and that's why it matters whether or not your kos is a kos pogum. Because otherwise it shouldn't matter. Who cares if you, in the middle of the meal, are drinking a kos pogum? It's not a halacha. It's only a halacha when it comes to a kos shel mitzvah. So that might be exactly, but dafka, what's going on here is that in order to help the people who have a kos pogum sort of refresh their cup as they are consuming this kos shel mitzvah, as it were, you pour a little bit into their cup.
You're not supposed to drink it first.
So in that circumstance, don't drink from it first because then you didn't help them. Right. Very good. I didn't think about that. Okay. Simeon, go ahead.
Rob, you just taught that if the Mekadesh finishes the bracha, the other people around the table must not drink, even if they have the wine in front of them, until the Mekadesh drinks himself.
If they are, I'll just add the words of the Shulchan Aruch, im heim zekukim lekoso, if they need his cup. Either they have a kos pogum in front of them, the guests, or they have an empty cup. If they don't have a kos, if they don't depend on the Mekadesh for the kos, let's say they have a full glass of wine in front of them. So it's just Richie was just pointing out, I think correctly so, that by listening to my kiddush and saying amen at the correct junctures, they have essentially a kos shel kiddush in front of them, and therefore they can go ahead and drink without depending on me drinking first, because they weren't dependent upon my wine. If they're dependent upon my wine, because their kos is a kos pogum, so I have to pour into their cup from mine. And then before I drink, they drink. That's not okay. Or they have an empty cup, and they were dependent upon my cup. Then I need to drink first before they can drink. But if they have their own cup and they are self-sufficient, they listen to my bracha. Okay, they were yotzei through my brachos, but they had their own wine, like a little bit of a shomei ka'ona situation here. Then they don't have to wait for me. Then they can go ahead and consume.
But your bracha is not a standalone bracha. You haven't fulfilled it yet. You made the bracha, but you didn't drink the wine.
But it's like any scenario where if I make, as I mentioned, the grilled cheese example before, if I'm having grilled cheese, Simeon, and you're having grilled cheese, and we sit down at the same time, we washed at the same time basically, and we sit down. One of us can make the bracha of hamotzi lechem in haaretz, and the other one can say amen, and we can both consume. And the truth is that the person who heard the bracha can take the first bite. Even he can beat the other person to the bite, and that's okay. It's only a problem if I need your kos. That's when we said that's an issue. By
the way, just as a quick aside, when you're relying on somebody else making a bracha for you, as we know, for example, by Megillah, we do not recite Baruch Hu Baruch Shemo.
Oh, 100%. If you're being yotzei through the bracha, you say amen, and that's it. And you're done with it. Exactly. 100%. Yes. All right, let's take a look at the Mishnah Berurah down below. Pay. Mishnah Berurah Sifkat on pay. Sorry, ayin test. Excuse me, I didn't even finish the last one. Ulakadesh. Oopsies. Ulakadesh. Ayin test. Okay, well, this goes back upon the last word of the previous sif. Sorry, I jumped ahead. Ulakadesh. Kasav hamagen avram im kiddush shachar sal shecha v'nishpach hakos. You make a kiddush in the morning on alcohol, and then you spill the cup all together. You drop the shot glass or whatever you made kiddush on in the morning. Ein tzarich lahavi acher. You don't need to go get another shot glass of whatever it was that you had. Because there are those who say shedai b'mesh mevarech hamotzi alapas. It's okay. You're gonna make hamotzi anyways on the bread for lunch. You don't have to make another, shahakol on whatever schnapps that you brought. And Rabbi Akiva actually really doesn't like this. He says, then what was the point in the first place of bringing the schnapps? If you're gonna make kiddush over schnapps, then make kiddush over schnapps. Oh, I tried once and it didn't work. He doesn't like that. That doesn't satisfy him. Okay, now we're up to Sifkat on Pei. Lo yitamu ha-mesubim. The mesubim shouldn't taste until the Mekadesh taste if they're reliant on his cup. Hainu af shehayu lahem kosos b'fnei atzmam l'shasiel. Even if they have a cup in front of them, it's a kos pagum, it's a kos, but it's an empty kos. They should not drink first, or it's pegumim pei aleph. Pogum nikra. Now he reviews the halacha for us, but you all are experts already. Pogum nikra kishitam mehamashkim mitchila. Pogum is called as such when someone, a who, tastes from the mashkim from the drink first. Umevar b'sif sha'achar zeh, and in Sif Yud Zayin we're about to talk about pogum more. The shehakosos shel mesubim pigumin. When the kosos of those who are reclining, who are enjoying the meal together with the Mekadesh, are pogum, then mitzvah sheyishboch ha-Mekadesh me'at me-koso l'toch kosan. It's a mitzvah the Mekadesh should hold off on drinking, and he should pour a little bit into each of their cups. Shebazeh, because through this, yitakein kosan shelo yeh pogum. You fix their cups so that they're no longer a kos pogum, and now they are, able to drink the kos shel mitzvah with a cup that is not pogum. And since they are dependent upon his cup, the Mekadesh's cup, their whole situation is dependent upon him, and therefore they have to wait for him to taste first before they can go ahead and taste. Now let's what time is it? Let's finish up Yud Zayin if we can. Yeah, let's finish Yud Zayin. We'll finish the Siman, and then we'll start a new Siman next week. Siman Sif Yud Zayin. Ein tzarich lishpos mikos hamikadesh lekosos yayin shelifnei hamesub elim kein hayu pigumim. Shas tzarich lishpoch lekol kos v'chos kedei sheyishtu chulam mikos she'eno pogum. So he says here, you don't need to pour from the kos of the Mekadesh to the other kosos that are in front of the Mesubim unless they're pogum. Because then you need to pour to each kos in order to unpogumify the kos so they can drink from a kos that is not pogum. You're refreshing their cup so they can enjoy their kos shel mitzvah the best way. Again, b'di'evet, if even if you're the person who made kiddush did it over a kos pogum, b'di'evet, you're still yotzei. But it's not the ideal way to do a kiddush. You should try to eliminate the pogum status of the cup, and this is the eitzah for how to do that. Pei beis, okay. Sh'az tzarich lishpos hainu lishpoch. Excuse me. You need to pour hainu kodem sheyishte hamevarech. That's before the mevarech drinks. Otherwise, you've accomplished nothing. Now, he is a kos pogum, and pogum plus pogum equals pogum. There's no math here that adds up otherwise. So you have to do this before you take a sip. Okay.
That's it.
Just taking a look here for a second. Hold on. Let's some extra comments here on the side that I thought was interesting, but maybe I'll hold off and read it afterwards. Pei Gimel. That everybody should drink from a kos that's not doesn't have a status of pogum. As I said all along, the fact that the people around the table don't drink or do drink, it's not ma'akev. It doesn't make or break the mitzvah.
Doesn't nullify the mitzvah.
Yeah, if they don't want to drink, nobody has to drink. You don't have to. Okay? Except for the one who made the kiddush. You're relying
on the Mekadesh anyway. And since he went ahead and exchanged his yayin pogum, then everybody is good to go.
Right, because he helped everybody out. Correct. Anyways, you're reliant on him. And you don't have to drink. It's not ma'akev. We mentioned it Sif Yudal. Mikol makom. Nevertheless, mitzvah lichatchila sheyishtu mikos she'eno pogum. There is this mitzvah to drink from a kos that's not pogum. Right, whether that's somebody pours from their big kos locations, a little something or other that they pass around, or you have your own cup in front of you and you're holding it like during the kiddush and you're being yotzei through the kiddush of the mekadesh. All good, but you should try, if you're going to be trying to partake in the mitzvah and a mufchar, don't do so in a way that is kos pogum.
So the
Yes, Steve.
combination cup, if he pours before he drinks to everybody else, it's not pogum. The pogum is only at the time you make kiddush, not sort of between what happens kiddush and drinking.
Right. For himself, he's okay. Meaning that you're saying, like, if I made kiddush on a fresh glass of wine,
Right.
and then I drink.
No, you
No.
don't drink. You pour it.
Oh, I pour. No, that's not pogum.
Everybody else.
Yeah.
Your cup now is
It's still good.
Yeah.
Still good. Correct. Kos pogum only comes about through one way, which is somebody consumes from that cup. And again, you can fix it by pouring new wine into that cup, and now it's completely refreshed. All right, so we will begin Siman Reish Ayin Beis, or as they like to write it here, Ayin Reish Beis, because Ra'av is a famine, so we don't want a famine. So it's Ayin Reish Beis. But if you put a particular dot in a spot there, I don't want to point out to them. You could also have the fifth plague is here Arov, and it's often usually spelled Chaser. So anyways, whatever. Yeah, Simi, you got a question?
Yes, you described before that if the Mesubin around the table partake in the wine that was in the kos of the Mevorech, it's mitzvah min ha-mevuchar.
Muvchar, yeah.
Yes?
Yeah,
So-
they get a little shot glass that was poured from the... Yeah.
Well, it seems to me that about 20 or 30 years ago, the market was inundated by these fancy devices you put on the table that